my pleasure to bring a person who's looking to gain a seat on the city council. Gerry Gay, welcome to York County Connects here on Seacoast Oldies.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you're running for city council. You've been in Sanford for quite a while. Can you give me a little history on how long you've been here?
Yeah, I moved here in 1982, and one of the conditions of joining the fire department back then was mandatory. You had to live in Sanford as a condition of employment. So we did. We actually moved down to Sanford Manor Apartments, and we lived there for, probably about a year, and then we had a house built up on Chick Road in Sanford.
Oh, cool. That's a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's nice.
You still there today?
I am. I have the enjoyment of deer, and we've had a bear up there, a ton of turkeys.
Wow.
So a ton of turkeys.
Yeah, I had a couple of deer. I live in Waterboro now. I'm from Sanford originally, but yeah, they were snacking in the yard, and I didn't put it out there. It's just there.
They find it.
What were some of the trickiest fires that you fought over the years?
Well, not so much tricky. It's some of the ones that you actually, your first fire rescue that you ever did was Sunset Towers, 5th floor, a lady by the name of Edith Passon. And I was on the ladder truck that night. And I remember my Captain Leo Muzzerall, great guy. And we would always go there for smoke alarms, people cooking toast and that stuff. And for whatever reasons, the building was all dark that night. And when we got up there, he's mumbling about, a burnt toast. But when we got up to about the 4th floor, you could smell something different. And before you know it, get to the 5th floor, and he just cracked open the door, and the black smoke came out, and we knew we had a fire. And we were able to get to her. I won't get into the other stuff there, but we was able to get to her. Unfortunately, she did pass away, but that was my first,
That was your welcome to Sanford moment, I guess. Huh?
Well, that one and the one that probably everybody remembers that redesigned downtown was the Washington Square fire.
I was going to ask you about that. I vaguely remember that vividly remember that as a child going down to watch, essentially you and your department clean up. What type of fire was that?
There was multiple apartment buildings. There were over 10 departments that came in to help us. And I think for probably at least a day and a half, there were 7 people unaccounted for. So, so it's one of those ones where the oh no. But in history, that building burned 3 times. I have pictures of them all. Back in the 1920s, and again in the 1970s, and again when it burned in New Year's Day.
How close was Sanford to the fire of 47?
Not as close as, actually, I just talked to somebody, I don't know if you saw the new trail I just opened up in Springville, and that was one of my questions I just asked. How close was this whole area? And it wasn't that close. Springville really wasn't affected too much by the 47 fire, but they were impacted by the 53 fire, where Sanford lost a firefighter. His name was Corey Goodwin, down on Twombly Road, trying to save a fire truck, and broke his leg, and the fire got him. And a guy by the name of Keith Goodrich, who passed away there a few years ago, was the last surviving member and remembered that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had the opportunity to talk to him about that. And again, Keith was in his 80s and still remembered it to this day. The one thing about firefighters people need to understand is they never forget. And they carry a lot with them from the day they come on the job to the day they retire, to many years after, to the day they die. They'll always remember what they've done for the community.
Is that because of the nature of the job and the deep work that you have to do?
It is, and it's changed so much. If you go back in history, they were going to fires and box alarms. That was pretty much it. And once in a while, a vehicle accident, and now vehicle accidents picked up. And now they're doing everything from heroin overdoses, shooting, stabbings, and it's just compiled. And again, when you look at over 5,000 emergency service calls in a community that's only 51 square miles, that's a red flag right there. And it's only going to get busier. It's not going to slow down. You talk about all these places all around the state of Maine and around the country. Everybody's call volume is increasing, and we need to make sure that we're prepared for that and not have somebody wait. And again, I can speak to a call just before I retired. It took us 18 minutes to get to a woman's husband who wasn't breathing. I find that unacceptable. unacceptable service. So we're going to fix that.
Gerry Gay is our guest here this morning, running for city council in Sanford. Make your informed decision on Tuesday, and talking about your years and decades as a first responder. How do you feel being a first responder qualifies you for being on the city council?
Well, I follow the issues. I follow the issues from the schools, in public safety, in everywhere, but not just here. But I also spent time at the legislature on bills that help firefighters and their families from our cancer legislation. So I know, I've listened to people, I understand their struggles, and I just look at it as, can I make a difference? We can't continue with the status quo. We just can't. We spend money, we create programs, and we haven't even figured out how the first program works, and we're taking money out of that one. That's foolish. It's poor business, you know. And I just want to come in and say, you know what? We're done. We need to move a better direction for this community, because we're in competition with other communities to survive. You know, we don't have a really good business. I mean, you heard it. They've all said we're not business friendly. Why is that? We have to change that mentality. This is stupid. Every time we say no to a business, everybody hurts, including the taxpayer. And this is ridiculous. We need to be open up and say, what are you going to do for us to help offset our tax base? And, you know, I got crazy ideas. I do.
That's good. Sometimes you need someone like that. And what was the point where you're like, you know what? Enough of this. I'm in. I'm running.
A lot of it had to do with property tax. You know, we're going to be getting hit with a reassessment. I believe the year is 2027. So right now we're paying on an older rate. We're going to jack that up. And when you look at people that live in the community, and I'll speak more to the elderly, is who live on a Social Security check. And I don't know if you saw in the paper, the average check goes up about $600. How do you make that payment on $600 a year? Not a month, but a year. They got to stretch that. You know, I talk about my mother-in-law. She was 91 when she passed away this past January. And she lived alone for 25 years after her husband passed away. And the struggle she made to stay in her home every year, you know, we were paying, you know, the family was making sure we paid a lot of those bills. But when you see it for yourself, when you physically see it in front of you, you go, this is wrong. This is totally wrong. Our elderly, our veterans, you know, should not be struggling. We should be figuring out a way. How do we help them so they can stay in their homes, not figure out a way to take their homes by some other programs that the state creates so they can take possession of a property? That's stupid business. We got to figure out what's best out there. You know, one of the crazy ideas I have is local tax, tax, sales tax, and that specifically go towards property tax relief. They can't use it for nothing else. The legislature's not solving this problem. But if we can turn around and rally enough people in the state of Maine, we could pass a sales tax where everybody can take that money and use it for property tax.
Not a general fund.
Not a general fund.
Yeah.
You don't have access to that, okay? This is sole purpose of property tax. It can work. You just got to make sure you keep your hands off of it. If I got the time.
Sure.
I got the firefighters. We passed, I think, one of the best bills back in 2006. And it was a subsidy for firefighters, healthcare. Okay, and it was a great program. One of the problems we were running into, firefighters weren't retiring because of the cost of healthcare. We understood that, so we created a program where just the firefighters and police officers commit, I believe it's 1.5% of their weekly pay into this fund. Okay, and trust me, we got beat up. It took us 2 years to do this, and we got beat up in the legislature big time. But we didn't give up. And
what was their big concern?
It was going to cost taxpayers. And I can tell you this right now. It won by one vote at 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay. And I can sit here today and I'll tell you, there's over $20 million in a retiree health care fund.
Just in the last 20 years.
Exactly. So it can work. You just got to have the right people to lead the program. And I can tell you probably at least a dozen times. No, I should say a dozen, maybe 8 times. Many of us, I included, testified before appropriations because they wanted to borrow some of our money. Because it was, at the time, it was sitting in the general fund. It no longer sits in the general fund. It now sits in a trust fund. So they can't touch it.
Smart.
Well, again,
yes.
if you follow politics, they're always dipping into the general
fund, man.
You look at, and again, you don't know. There's one, I believe it's $1.5 billion that Maine is sitting on, maybe bigger than that. Why are you sitting on that money when you have a crisis in the state of Maine? One of them is property tax. Why? Why are you sitting on? This is stupid. And you got to figure out, send the message to the State House. You got to make sure you get the right people up there to do the message. Look at the taxes that this governor just imposed on all these people. And again, I go back to the elderly who gets a $600 a year check has to stretch $600 for the next 12 months, 52 weeks a year. Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's hard.
It doesn't happen. So they struggle, and then they struggle. And I can speak firsthand. We've gone to calls where people have cut their medication and they have a medical event, and you inquire why. I can't afford the medicine. In our country, this is wrong. It's just it's deploring when you hear situations like this in the fire department, and not just ours, but all across the state of Maine and across the country. People are going through this. This is stupid, just plain stupid. The people are being ignored, and we got to change that mentality. And
your solution to that, specifically for Sanford, is to grow outward and build your downtown.
Absolutely. In the summertime, everybody drives through our community to go to the lakes. We see it. We've seen it for years. But look what we got to show them. We have buildings that are vacant. We have the Sanford Trust building that was for years one of the premier folks where everybody met, held weddings. All that's it's empty.
It's my dream to put our studios in that building. I don't know what's in there right now, but however we got to clean it out, we got to make it happen.
Let me tell you, in my career as a firefighter, I had an opportunity to do a lot of traveling all across the country, and I also got to do the Wreaths Across America for a number of years. Fantastic program, and one of those events, I actually was able to place a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, an honor that just will never surpass. But one of the things is there's a place, I believe it was in Alexandria, Virginia, where there were beautiful buildings all around, restaurants down below, stores below, and above it was housing. And in the center of that was a small ice rink. And with a gazebo, and they went around, and you could literally go out there in the evening, have your dinner, and watch these little kids. It was set up for little ones only, and go out there and skate. And I just sat there going like, wouldn't that be cool in the middle of our city? You got to think outside the box. If you continue to say, this is the way we're going to do it, we're not going to, it's just not going to work. We got to think outside the box, because again, I come back to, we're competing.
Yeah, we have a lot of hockey families in Sanford.
We do. Again, going back in history.
Are you a hockey family?
I love hockey. Yeah. Well,
not the Bruins this year, though.
Well, my son's always been a Bruins fan, so I always kind of say, how's the Bruins doing? But again, Sanford had the opportunity years ago for 2 ice rinks. And instead of saying, you know what, let's think outside the box. Let's get 1. Never mind 2, let's get 1. We have none. We've had the opportunities to bring good business, UPS, FedEx, all these people to our community, especially when we lost Sprague, where over 1,000 people were working. We said no, because we were concerned about the mills. Now look, we're burning them, and we just had an incident the other day.
Yesterday, man, it was right on fire.
And that building's been a nightmare for a number of years. But you have to sit and go, we have to do better. We just got to do better. If we continue to sit on the stumps, waiting for the deer to come so we can shoot a deer, we're going to fail.
You got to build your own stand.
You have to. You've got to build. That's a good point. Good point. But it's just crazy. But if we're not doing it, we're gonna screw this up.
Gerry Gay is our guest this morning. He's running for city council in Sanford. Make your decision on Tuesday. We've talked about his over 40 years of experience as a first responder. Also, one thing that I remember growing up is the fire horn. So if elected on the city council, will you bring back the fire horn? So everybody knows to get home.
Everybody. Thanks for that. That's a great question. We enjoyed that. It was fun because Springvale was 9 and 12, okay, and then downtown was 7 and 5. That was the whistle. And so many that have grew up in this community always remember when that whistle blew in the summertime around 7 and the 9 o'clock it was I got to get home. I got to get home.
Yes.
And it was actually fun. But sometimes, and this is, again, it's history now, we would, in the summertime, a lot of folks would walk by the downtown station. So we just sit there and we watch. And when a big crowd was out front, we'd actually, instead of blowing it the right time we're supposed to, we'd wait till the crowd got in right front and then blow it.
Yes.
And then everybody would jump, stuff like that.
I was in that crowd and it scared the daylights out of me because I grew up 2 miles from the fire station and I would hear it.
Yep.
But like to be next to the Springville fire station,
But the other part of it was it also alerted the firefighters to let them know that there was a fire within the community. And living up on Mount Hope, I could hear it. So, but we all, we had pagers and stuff like that, but you knew the whistle. But across the street, many years ago, there was a nursing home across the street. And I was dispatching at the time. So you had to play with these buttons a little bit to make sure the box wouldn't keep coming in and the whistle not blowing. So I flipped all the switches, I thought. And then my job was to now run to get in the truck and then go to the box. Well, the next day, I can't remember who the reporter was, wanted to know what the emergency was in the city because the box, it was box 731. It comes in 731 4 times. The whistle blew 731 4 times. 4 times.
Oh no!
Oh yes!
Oh no!
So
like
not only did we wake up every elderly person in that nursing home, but the staff over there was upset. We're racing to get back to the firehouse to flip the right switches to stop it. But the next, when Sanford News wrote the next, it wasn't being invaded by the air raids and stuff like that. So
nowadays, if that thing happened, boy, they were under attack. Gerry Gay, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show this morning with City Council. Again, it's coming up on Tuesday. Your vote matters, especially in local politics, and we're back to the music faster after these on Your County's Morning Show.